Hello, everyone, and welcome to Medical Terminology. My name is Carissa Legg. I am going to be your instructor for the next 5.5 weeks as we go through and we learn about medical terminology. So, one of the first things that I like to do with these course announcements is really just introduce you to the topics that we're going to be talking about that are also your chapter readings. Sometimes I go into great detail with them. Other times I'm going to let you do a lot of the work, but I'm just going to hit the basics with you. So for Module 1, we're looking at chapters 1, 2, and 3. So this is going to give us the basic elements of medical language. The first one, Chapter 1, that we're going to start with is going to give you the kind of basic elements. And talking about basic elements, we're talking about things like a prefix, a suffix, a word root, and a combining form. The language of medicine is really a very specialized vocabulary, and it's really only used by healthcare professionals. That could be anyone from a dentist to a medical examiner, um, medical assistants, surgical technologies, um, medical billing and coding, nurses, doctors. Anyone who's within that healthcare field is going to have that kind of background in this medicine and in this language. How these elements are combined and whether they all or some of them are present really determines the meaning of a word. So in order to understand the meaning of medical words, it's important to look at how they're divided. And those divisions, again, are breaking down into a word root, combining form, a suffix, and a prefix. So let's kind of get into those a little bit more. The first one that we're talking about is a word root. Now, in your textbook, table 1-1 will provide you with excellent examples of what word roots are and more in-depth word roots. So if you're looking in your book, that's going to be pages 36 and 37. When we talk about what is a word root, it's really sort of the general term or the foundational term within that medical verbiage. So things like, for example, if you have the term cardiology, cardi is the word root that refers to a specific unit within the body. So, and that's typically how it's going to be. A word root is going to go to some sort of unit within the body. Most medical terms have at least one word root. Some can have more. So gastrointestinal or gastroenterology, that is actually a combination of two. And again, for an example here, we've got the term dermatose and cutane. So the other thing that's really important is sometimes a body system or body part can have multiple meanings or have multiple words that mean the same thing. So dermatose here, derma means skin, but cutane or cutis also means skin. So you have to be able to look at what are we really talking about here. But not only that, looking more in depth at what is actually being discussed. Combining forms are used when we have to create a word root combined to a suffix or prefix, typically a suffix. The combining form vowel on its own has no meaning, but enables two or more word elements to be connected. A combining form is a basic foundation to which other word elements are added to build a complete medical word. Typically, that combining vowel or combining form will be the letter O. There are occasions where it could be an I, but typically it's going to be an O. So for example, here we have the term neph, and which refers to kidney. But if we wanted to connect it to other medical terms like nephrology, we would use an O because ology, L-O-G-Y, means the study of. But nephrology doesn't make sense. It's really hard to say. So we add the O to make it easier to pronounce. So nephrology. But if we wanted to combine that with the term itis, I-T-I-S, which means inflammation, we would not need that combining form because it already begins with a vowel. Prefixes is a term that typically comes at the beginning of a word root. Now, what's really important here is to know that not all medical terms have a prefix to them. The prefix will typically indicate a number, a time, a position, a direction, or a negation. And it's important to know that many of the same prefixes that we use in the English language are used in medical terminology. So for example, here we have the term anesthesia. AN is the prefix. And then here the prefix AN means without or not. Anesthesia, stage, is the term of feeling. So that is a word root. And IA is a suffix, which means condition. So altogether, this word, if you were to put it all together, we know what anesthesia is. It's something that we use to put someone to sleep for a procedure so they don't have feeling. So altogether, it's a condition of not feeling. Some of the other basic guidelines that you want to follow is when you're defining and building medical words, it's crucial to master the medical terminology. The first thing that you want to do is define the suffix. Now, I know that seems a little strange because normally wouldn't you want to start with what are we focused on? What's the word root? However, if you start with the suffix, so what comes at the end, that begins the process of knowing what we're talking about. Because typically a suffix is going to be for example, something like a procedure, a condition of, a study of, something of that nature. So if you can start there, you know what we're working with. Once you have defined that, then you can define the prefix. So do the suffix, then the prefix, and then come back and do the word root. So after you define the word, you then need to learn how to build it. So building it comes with 3 basic rules as well. A word root, so number 1, a word root links a suffix that begins with a vowel. So for example, if you have like nephritis, if you have a suffix, itis, that starts with a vowel, you can combine those 2 forms right together, no problem. But rule number 2 says if the combining form, so the word root, does not have a, if you're trying to combine a word root and a suffix together, but the suffix begins with a constant, then you need to have that combining form of O. So again, thinking about what we talked about with nephrology, that O is the combining form to make that word make sense and easier to say. And then rule number 3, a combining form links one word root to another word root to form a compound word. So this rule will hold true even if the second word root begins with a vowel. So for example, gastroenterology. Enter O is a word root. Gastro is a word root, but we don't need to keep the O there because the combining form, that second word, has a vowel. So gastroenterology. Now, what I would recommend if you want some more practice with things like this, there are activities at the end of each chapter of your book that could help you with more knowledge as well as topic checks. Moving on, we're going to talk about chapter 2, which is all about suffixes. So remember that a suffix is something that is added to the end of a word root or combining form to change its meaning. Whether you change the suffix, whenever you change the suffix, you change the word meaning. Words that contain more than one word root are known as compound words, and multiple roots within a compound word are joined together with a vowel, regardless of whether the second word root begins with a vowel or a consonant. So it would be a wise idea for you to review Table 2-1 and 2-2 in your book. Table 2-1 will review the word roots and combining forms with suffixes. And then Table 2-2 will actually review compound words with suffixes. It's also a good idea to have in the back of your mind, there is a glossary at the end of your book that has very commonly used prefixes, suffixes, and word roots. Now, in order for you to master medical terminology, you need to learn the major types of suffixes that are in categories. So surgical suffixes describe a type of invasive procedure performed on the body. So whether that is a surgery, an incision, a cutting, dissecting, anything like that that is a surgical procedure would fall under this. And Table 2-3 in your textbook gives you a list of common surgical suffixes. Diagnostic suffixes describe a procedure performed to identify the cause and nature of an illness. So things like a biopsy, a mammogram, mammogram, an X-ray, a MRI, something like that, something that will help us to determine the cause of the disease. And again, Table 2-4 in your textbook is going to give you a very common list of diagnostic and pathological suffixes. Now, the last one is a pathological suffix, which describes an abnormal condition or disease. So things like melanoma, O-M-A means tumor. It could be a discoloration. It could be a million different things. So definitely take a look at tables 2-3 and 2-4. Now we also have something called grammatical suffixes. These are suffixes that are attached to a word root to form parts of speech. So things like adjectives or nouns. So here we have an example of pathological. So if we break this down, path is the word root. O is the combining form, and then logical is the suffix. So here we're just looking at the ICAL, that is ical. That is our actual grammatical suffix. Ology would be the actual suffix itself. So pathological means that it is something, a disease causing bacteria. And to wrap up this course announcement, we have chapter 3, which is talking about those prefixes. So again, just like suffixes, prefixes are something that comes at the beginning of a word. So suffix at the end, prefix at the beginning. And these can be substituting one prefix for another, or it could be anything that could be combined with a word root or suffix. But again, not all medical terms will have a prefix, so please keep that in mind. Our example here, we have the term prenatal. Prenatal actually has a word root, a suffix, and a prefix. The prefix here is P-R-E, which means before. Nat, N-A-T, means birth. That is our word root. And the suffix al means pertaining to. So the term prenatal means pertaining to the period before birth. There are many different types of prefixes, just like what we have with suffixes. We had the surgical suffixes, the diagnostic suffixes, and the pathological suffixes. We have positional prefixes, numerical prefixes, measurement prefixes, and directional prefixes. So I would again highly recommend looking at these tables that I've listed here to really help you out, as well as that glossary at the end of your book. These are all going to help you not only for quizzes and things of that nature, but also to get you prepared for upcoming assignments like those course projects that are going to start in Module 2. All right, to give you the last little bit of information here, I want to talk about what your homework is for the week. So this is our first week, so it's pretty light, not as many assignments, but starting in week 2 through week 6, we will have quite a few more. So for week 1, we just have that first discussion board. Please remember that initial posts are due on Tuesdays, so your first initial post should have been made by Tuesday, April 4th, and you'll need to make at least one, preferably 2 reply posts to a classmate by Saturday, April 8th. Please make sure that you review the rubric for how I will be grading, as well as the example of the initial discussion post that I made before you do your own work. You will have a quiz this week. Your quiz is timed, so it's one attempt, 20 minutes, and I believe it's 20 questions, all multiple choice. And that's going to be due Sunday, April 9th. And then you will have a live classroom assignment. Remember that live classroom is going to be held on April 4th at 10 a.m. If you are unable to attend that live, please make sure that you do watch the recording. If you need help on how to find the recording, please let me know. All right, guys. I'm not really sure what happened. My camera glitched there, but I am all done. So I hope that you all have a great start to your week. Hopefully I get to see many of you in the live lecture. If not, hopefully I get to see you in future live lectures. Thank you. Bye.